On the eve of the college entrance examination, a young girl arrived at our home, claiming to be the true daughter of my parents. I was acutely aware that she had deliberately chosen this moment to disrupt my upcoming exam, hoping to ensure my failure. For she was a reincarnated soul, while I was merely a character within a narrative. The day before the examination, my parents' biological daughter came knocking at our door. She asserted that we had been switched at birth in the hospital and requested a paternity test. My mother, upon seeing her, embraced her and wept profusely, exclaiming, "My darling, there is no need for a paternity test. I can already tell you are my daughter." The reason for her certainty was simple. This true daughter bore a striking resemblance to my mother in her youth. The true daughter appeared somewhat bewildered. After glancing at me, she suggested, "Perhaps we should still proceed with the test, just in case I am mistaken." "There is no mistake," my mother sobbed. "You are undoubtedly my daughter." Nonetheless, under the true daughter's insistence, we decided to go through with the paternity test. Once the staff collected samples from the three of them, they prepared to leave. That opportune moment, the true daughter turned to me and said, "Shen Mian, you should join us for the test as well." The atmosphere grew awkward. I smiled and replied, "No need for me. You all can proceed without me." The true daughter remained adamant, saying, "Let's do it anyway. If I am indeed mistaken, it would ease your minds to have it confirmed." My father interjected calmly, "There is no need. Mian has already undergone a paternity test with us." I flashed a sweet smile at the true daughter, who remained blissfully unaware that I was not only privy to the plot but had a greater understanding of it than she did. Being a transmigrator, I was aware that she would come to the Shen household the day before the examination. She believed that her previous life had been wretched due to the original owner of this body usurping her existence. Thus, she sought revenge against Shen Mian. By choosing this critical moment to reveal the truth, she intended to catch Shen Mian off guard, hoping to precipitate her failure in the examination. In the original story, Shen Mian had been the top scorer in the humanities within the city. The reincarnated true daughter indeed succeeded in causing Shen Mian's downfall during the examination. Hence, prior to her arrival, I had already concocted a rationale to inform my parents of the possibility that I was not their biological child. At my behest, we had undergone a paternity test, the results of which were glaringly clear. I was not a child of the Shen family. I promptly suggested moving out, but my parents refused. After 18 years of nurturing, even if I was not their biological offspring, the bond of affection remained. To alleviate the awkwardness for the true daughter, my mother took the initiative to discuss the matter of changing names. Therefore, before the paternity test results were even announced, the true daughter's name was transformed from Jiang Mingzhu to Shen Mingzhu. Upon her return, Shen Mingzhu declared, "Uncle, aunt, before the results of the paternity test are revealed, I believe I should return to the Jiang family." Naturally, my adoptive mother was reluctant to let her go, subtly inquiring about the circumstances at the Jiang household. When Shen Mingzhu arrived at the Shen residence, she was clad in worn garments, faded from repeated washes. I discerned that although my adoptive mother refrained from voicing her concerns, she was already apprehensive about Shen Mingzhu's life at the Jiang family, wishing for her to stay. Shen Mingzhu hesitated, stating, "Father Jiang is a doctor, and Mother Jiang is a teacher. Although their income is modest, our family finds joy in our small home." I mentally underscored her words. Modest income, small house. My adoptive mother's expression immediately shifted. Her eyes brimmed with compassion as she implored, "Mingzhu, perhaps it's best if you don't return. The college entrance examination is tomorrow. The back-and-forth travel may impact your performance." After a moment of contemplation, my adoptive father finally spoke. "Please provide me with the contact details for the Jiang family. I shall communicate with them." He retreated to the study to make the call, leaving us unaware of his conversation. Before long, my biological parents appeared at the entrance of the Shen villa. While the two families convened in the living room, Shen Mingzhu and I were summoned back to the room. Her sudden arrival led my adoptive mother to temporarily arrange for her to occupy the guest room. After returning to my room, I briefly organized my belongings and the materials I would need for the examination. In truth, there was little to pack, as I had anticipated Shen Mingzhu's visit since I discovered my literary transmigration. After all, it was evident that she would seek me out, and my stay at the Shen residence would be fleeting. Being prepared was far preferable to being unceremoniously expelled. However, unbeknownst to me, after their discussion, my biological parents astonishingly consented to allow me to remain at the Shen household until after the examination, at which point we would proceed with the paternity test. As they departed, I walked them out. My mother grasped my hand gently and asked, "May I call you Mian Mian?" I nodded, "Of course." She smiled warmly and said, "Mian Mian, nothing is more important than your upcoming examination. Whether you laugh or cry, let us address everything after it concludes, shall we? She spoke many comforting words. Aware of my potential distress due to the sudden upheaval. Yet how could I be affected? In my previous life, I was akin to Shen Mian, having been the top scorer in the liberal arts in our city. Conversely, Shen Mingzhu, in the original narrative, became so consumed by scheming against Shen Mian after her rebirth that she scarcely touched her study materials, ultimately failing to even gain admission to a college. Little did she know that, in the original story, both she and Shen Mian were merely supporting characters to highlight the protagonist. The day of the college entrance examination arrived as expected. Shen Mingzhu and I were in different testing locations. In the original text, she feigned inferiority, prompting both Shen father and Shen mother to escort her to the examination venue. Meanwhile, Shen Mian, grappling with the dual blows of discovering her lack of blood relation to the Shen family and the neglect from those she had called parents for over a decade, performed poorly in the first round. The college entrance examination, much like obtaining a driver's license, can be adversely affected by an initial misstep, leading to a ripple effect on subsequent performances. Furthermore, Shen Mingzhu's schemes against Shen Mian, which resulted in the latter consuming spoiled food and suffering from acute gastroenteritis, forced her to sit for the examination while ill. Thus, the one who should have been the top scorer in the liberal arts instead barely managed to secure a place in a junior college, while the original female protagonist, who had perpetually lingered in second place, ascended to the position of the top scorer. Shen Mingzhu fared even worse, having graduated years prior. She was utterly unacquainted with the rigors of study and could not concentrate on reviewing. Ultimately, she failed to gain admission even to a junior college, with Shen father financially maneuvering to enroll her in a school abroad. Aware of Shen Mingzhu's propensity for mischief, I proposed over breakfast that my adoptive parents escort her to the examination hall. I have already familiarized myself with the route. I can manage on my own. Wasn't it merely an act of feigned innocence? My adoptive mother, upon hearing this, was filled with concern. Shen Mingzhu was taken by surprise, her mouth agape. Yet she still endeavored to maintain her false smile, rendering the scene quite comical. My adoptive father interjected, Mian Mian, what nonsense are you speaking? Your mother will accompany Mingzhu while I take you. In the original story, Shen father and Shen mother treated Shen Mian quite well. Even after she returned to the Jiang family, they often visited her. I offered an innocent smile. That sounds perfect. The smile on Shen Mingzhu's face gradually faded. After the conclusion of the college entrance examination, the results of the paternity test were also revealed. As expected, Shen Mingzhu was indeed the true daughter of the Shen family. Upon seeing the results, she cast a provocative glance in my direction before collapsing into tears in Shen mother's embrace. Shen father, silent, lit a cigarette nearby. I approached him, saying, Dad, may we have a word? He instinctively extinguished the cigarette in his hand. Casting a glance at the heart-wrenching scene of Shen mother and Shen Mingzhu, he replied, Let us go to the study. I nodded and followed him inside. The soundproofing in the Shen household was quite effective. Upon entering the study, the cries outside were rendered inaudible. I stated directly, Dad, the paternity test results are now available, and I plan to move back to the Jiang family today. Shen father appeared taken aback, saying, Mian Mian, have you thought this through? The Shen family is not lacking in resources. One more daughter is easily supported. In the original narrative, when Shen Mian prepared to leave, Shen father similarly attempted to persuade her to stay. It is often said that the kindness of adoptive parents surpasses that of biological ones. The bond forged over years of cohabitation cannot simply be severed by a piece of paper. I smiled softly, stating, Dad, the moment I learned I was not your biological daughter, I had already made my decision. If I remain, Mingzhu will undoubtedly feel discontented, leading to inevitable friction between us. No matter who you favor, the other will feel wronged. I harbored a degree of sympathy for Shen Mingzhu. It was only natural for her to harbor resentment for having her privileged life taken from her for 18 years. Yet, in this matter, both Shen Mian and she were innocent. Shen Mian's biological parents had treated Shen Mingzhu well. Her previous misfortunes were purely a result of her own actions. She should not lay the blame entirely on Shen Mian. I continued, moreover, my biological parents have only me as their daughter. If I stay with the Shens, what will happen to them? This was the responsibility that Shen Mian ought to assume. Having usurped her identity, I must also shoulder this duty. Shen father remained silent for a prolonged moment before finally saying, Mian Mian, you have matured. Your considerations are far more comprehensive than before. I replied nonchalantly, one must grow. Shen father looked at me with a face full of remorse and retrieved a property deed from the drawer. This was intended as a gift for you upon your college enrollment. Please take it with you to the Jiang family. I shook my head, refusing to accept it.
Dad.
I only need to take the clothes and a few personal items you bought for me. Nothing else is necessary. In the original tale, Shen Mingzhu later caused a scene over this very property. Be obedient, Shen father insisted, pressing the deed into my hands. I have raised you for 18 years. You are my daughter, and that will not change, even if you go to the Jiang family. Ultimately, I declined to accept it. I feared that if I took the house, I would be unable to confront Shen Mingzhu should she choose to create further disturbances. I understood the principle of being indebted to others. On the day the examination results were announced, my parents were even more anxious than I was. Yet, I felt confident in my performance. Although I had already graduated from university in my previous life, I had been diligently solving problems since realizing my literary transmigration. Having diligently reviewed the annual examination questions from previous years, my scores have consistently improved, each attempt surpassing the last. Thus, even if I do not achieve the title of the top scholar in the city, securing a place in an undergraduate program should pose no difficulty. However, before I could even check my results, Father Shen called me with palpable excitement. Mian Mian, he exclaimed, your school just informed us that your Gaokao results are out. 698 points. You are the top art student in our city. Suddenly, I recalled that the contact number registered at the school was that of the Shen family. 698? I was momentarily taken aback, as it exceeded my expectations. Being in a directly governed municipality, while I had achieved the status of city champion, it bore a resemblance to the provincial champion title. Indeed, 698. I heard the second-place student scored just 1 point lower. Mian Mian, you truly excel. Father Shen praised. Tentatively, I inquired, is the second-place student named Wan Tang? Wan Tang, the female protagonist of this narrative, is also the top art student in the city. Father Shen replied, I cannot say for certain. I didn't ask your teachers. If you wish to know, I could certainly call and inquire. I hastily declined, no need. I'm not curious. For the sake of prudence, I wish to avoid any interactions with the original protagonist, lest I fall victim to her halo of fortune. Father Shen continued. The admissions office from Qingbei also called home. I provided them with your current address, so they will likely come to visit shortly. This did not come as a surprise. After all, as the city champion, the admissions officers from prestigious universities would undoubtedly seek to recruit me. I expressed my gratitude, and noticing my mother's eager expression, I asked, has Mingzhu's score been released? 6203. This was Shen Mingzhu's Gaokao score, which was significantly lower than her score in the original narrative. My parents were rendered speechless upon hearing it. It was well known that before leaving the Jiang family, Shen Mingzhu had scored over 600 in her last assessment, well above the threshold for first-tier universities. This child's performance is not reflective of her capabilities. How could she score so low? After a long silence, my mother remained incredulous that this score truly belonged to Shen Mingzhu. Given her previous academic standing, it was inconceivable that she could perform so poorly. Even if she had guessed blindly, my father remarked indifferently, perhaps returning to her biological parents has caused her to become overly elated. Upon hearing this, my mother's expression soured with disappointment. She lamented, I had no idea Mian Mian had been mistakenly switched with a child from the Shen family, nor how Mingzhu discovered it. Moreover, she didn't even inform us before going to the Shen family, my father scoffed. We bought her so many beautiful clothes. Yet she chose to wear an old garment from who knows where. After her rebirth, Shen Mingzhu was so preoccupied with reclaiming her place in the Shen family that she completely disregarded the adoptive parents who raised her for over a decade. My parents, having navigated the professional world for years, were not oblivious to her little schemes. Though they did not voice their thoughts, their disappointment was palpable. Observing their expressions, I deliberately stated, Dad, Mom, didn't Father Shen say the admissions officers are coming to our house? Shouldn't we tidy up a bit? My mother slapped her forehead. Oh dear, I almost forgot about that. My father stood up, saying, I will go wash some fruit. My mother turned to me, asking Mian Mian, let's not be swayed by the admissions officer's flattery. Have you decided which school you wish to apply to? Without hesitation, I replied, I think I will apply to the local university. It's closer to home, and it's not significantly inferior to Qingbei. In the original narrative, the protagonist Wan Tang applied to Qing University. However, although her score was slightly higher than in the book, she did not achieve the title of city champion. Concerned that subsequent events might shift due to my choices, I decided it was best to remain in the city. Having traversed into this narrative, I could not dismiss the mystical influence of the protagonist's halo. Yet, the unfolding reality diverged from the storyline. Father Shen did not send Shen Mingzhu abroad. Instead, he opted for her to retake the year. Strictly speaking, this upheaval has impacted Mian Mian more profoundly, yet she remains largely unaffected, while Mingzhu. Father Shen observed. This suggests that Mingzhu's mindset is not stable. Sending her abroad alone might exacerbate matters. Both good and bad events tend to trigger a chain reaction. Thus, Shen Mingzhu remained behind. Ultimately, I still chose to apply to Qing University. In truth, a certain local university is also quite renowned in the country. But after discussing it with my father, I decided to bear the weight of the narrative and select Qing University. Previously, I had focused on avoiding the plot, evading the fate that belonged to the original Shen Mian. I never considered that I might remain trapped within this book indefinitely, nor did I contemplate the possibility of Shen Mian's return. Therefore, every decision I made was aimed at evading the protagonist. Although the scores were indeed mine, they were achieved through Shen Mian's body. From the posts shared on Shen Mian's social media, it was evident that her dream university was also Qing University. Moreover, having already altered parts of the narrative, who could predict what the future would hold? On the day the admission letter from Qing University arrived, Father Shen called my father to invite our family out for a celebratory meal. Considering I had lived with the Shen family for 18 years, my father agreed to Father Shen's invitation. The dinner was scheduled for the evening. My mother was on holiday, but my father, being a doctor, had a demanding schedule, so we had to accommodate his availability. Father Shen selected a rather luxurious restaurant and reserved a private room. To my surprise, they did not bring Shen Mingzhu along. Perhaps sensing my curious gaze, Father Shen offered an explanation. Mingzhu has gone shopping with friends and won't be joining us. However, his words sounded more like an excuse, though it was understandable. Given Shen Mingzhu's dismal performance, she likely lacked the spirit to dine with me, especially since this meal was hosted by Father and Mother Shen. In her eyes, I had occupied her glory and wealth for 18 years, and it was a blessing that I was not utterly ruined, let alone celebrating my success. During the meal, my father and Father Shen had already begun to bond as brothers. They attributed my excellent results to the guidance provided by Father and Mother Shen. In the original text, they indeed had a significant influence on the original character's education. Yet, when Shen Mingzhu's results were mentioned, my father's expression turned somber. He grasped Father Shen's hand, saying, "Mingzhu was performing well before. I cannot fathom how her scores could have plummeted so drastically this time." My mother hesitated. Such a sudden turn of events, and with Mingzhu being so young, perhaps her mindset was not stable. She had always performed well. A year of retaking should ensure she secures a place in a prestigious university. Father Shen nodded. "I have seen her previous scores. They were indeed solid. This current performance is an anomaly." As I nonchalantly placed a piece of lobster meat into my bowl, I casually inquired, "By the way, how did Mingzhu find out that she was a child of the Shen family?" My question left them all momentarily stunned. After a pause, Mother Shen finally responded, "Indeed. How did Mingzhu come to know that she is our daughter?" When I confessed to Father Shen and Mother Shen that I was not their daughter, I had concocted a story about not resembling them and had secretly undergone a paternity test. However, Shen Mingzhu's situation was different. The Shen and Jiang families had no previous connections. How did she precisely uncover her origins? I knew the answer, but Father Shen and Mother Shen remained oblivious. She was like a ticking time bomb, and I had no qualms about planting seeds of doubt in Father Shen and Mother Shen's minds. As for my parents, once the school year commenced, I would be relocating to another city. They have raised Shen Mingzhu for over a decade, and such an attachment cannot be easily severed. Should Shen Mingzhu play any tricks, they are certain to fall into her trap. One must always be cautious, especially when the subject is Shen Mingzhu. On the way home, my parents remained silent throughout the journey. Upon our arrival, my mother furrowed her brow and inquired, "When do you think Mingzhu realized she is not our biological daughter?" My father slumped on the sofa and replied, "Who knows? Her biological parents are affluent, and it is only natural for her to wish to return to her life as a wealthy young lady." His tone carried a hint of sarcasm, yet it was laced with disappointment towards Shen Mingzhu. When I returned, I had observed Shen Mingzhu's room, which was filled with brand-name clothing, shoes, electronic devices, and skincare products. It was evident that although the Jiang family was not as wealthy as the Shen family, they had not neglected Shen Mingzhu in any way. Hearing my father's words, my mother cast a nervous glance in my direction. She asked Mian Mian with a sudden change, "You?" "Mom," I quickly interjected. "I actually knew I wasn't the Shen family's biological daughter before the switch. And I think our family is quite good. We are no worse than the Shens. Please do not overthink it." However, they remained preoccupied with their thoughts. Just moments after I returned to my room, I received a text notification that money had been deposited into my bank account. Each of my parents had transferred 10,000 yuan to me, urging me to buy clothes. I had no desire to shop, but their words served as a reminder. I needed to return Shen Mingju's belongings to the Shen family. When Shen Mingju left, it seemed she truly held disdain for the Jiang family. She took none of her clothing or shoes, and even left behind her computer. I found a suitcase and packed some of her newer clothes, along with her computer and other items. After informing Shen's mother in advance, I took a taxi to the Shen residence. Upon my arrival, I found only Shen's mother in the living room, engrossed in a drama. I dragged the suitcase in front of her and said, "Aunt Shen, these are Mingju's belongings left at the Jiang family. When she left, she didn't take her clothes, shoes, or computer. I've brought some over for her. You can have the servants collect the rest at your convenience." Shen's mother paused momentarily, saying, "Mingju's return was quite sudden. I had nearly forgotten about this." "It's no problem. I only remembered while packing last night," I replied as I set the suitcase down and opened it. Inside were seasonal clothes, all relatively new. Shen's mother glanced inside and remarked, "It's clear that your parents treated Mingju well, at such a young age. She has only brand name items." I smiled and said, "My father is a doctor, and my mother is a teacher. The incomes for these professions in our city are quite decent." They indeed treated Shen Mingju well, yet ironically, when she first came to the Shen family, she wore a tattered outfit to elicit sympathy. My intention in bringing these clothes was to show Shen's parents that Shen Mingju had not suffered at the Jiang family's hands. Shen's mother nodded, about to speak, when Shen Mingju descended the stairs. She was preoccupied with her phone and inquired, "Mom, is there a guest at home?" Before she could finish her sentence, she noticed me. I smiled and said, "Mingju, I've come to return the clothes you forgot to take when you left." Shen Mingju's expression faltered as she nervously glanced at Shen's mother and hurried over. She explained, "Mom, I feel that those things were bought with Uncle Jiang and Aunt Zhang's money. Since I'm not their daughter, it feels inappropriate to take items they purchased." She then cast a pointed glance at me. When I left, I took all the clothing and shoes that Shen's parents had bought for the original owner. As their only daughter, Shen Mingju would certainly not wear the clothes I had previously donned. Those garments, if left behind, would only meet the fate of being discarded. Which is why I took everything with me. Shen's mother calmly responded, "They raised you for over a decade. Even if you wish to bring something back, they would not object. Besides, you have worn those clothes. When Mian Mian returns, she certainly won't wear them again." Shen Mingju's face flushed with alternating colors, and she replied, "I've taken too much. I will go back another day to retrieve my clothes." I chuckled and suggested, "It would be better to have the servants collect them. There is quite a bit to carry, and you might find it difficult, especially with your old textbooks. You will likely need those soon." Shen's mother nodded in agreement. Mian Mian is right. With school starting soon, those old textbooks could be useful for review. Shen Mingju's smile appeared somewhat forced as she said, "All right, Mom. I will have the servants assist me in retrieving them later." She glanced at me again and asked, "Jiang Mian, would you like something to drink? I can get it for you." I shook my head, replying, "No, thank you. I have matters to attend to at home. I must be on my way." My objective had been achieved, and I had no desire to linger and engage in a battle of wits with her. Observing this, Shen's mother suggested, "Let the family driver take you back. It will conveniently help Mingju retrieve her belongings from the Jiang house." I smiled even more brightly. That sounds perfect. When school commenced, my mother also began her new term, and my father insisted on accompanying me to class registration. Initially, I wished to spare him the trouble of the back-and-forth journey. But both he and my mother were uneasy and insisted on escorting me. The female protagonist, Wan Tang, arrived at Qing University just as depicted in the original narrative. The original owner was only slightly acquainted with Wan Tang, merely nodding acquaintances. Yet during military training, Wan Tang unexpectedly approached me to greet me. "Shen Mian." "I never anticipated we would be classmates again," Wan Tang exclaimed, her smile as sweet as her name. "I now go by Jiang Mian," I reminded her. Wan Tang nodded and promptly corrected herself. "Of course, Jiang Mian." I twisted open a bottle of mineral water and took a sip. Turning my head, I was surprised to find Wan Tang had seated herself directly beside me. "Jiang Mian, you are truly impressive. You achieved the top score in the humanities in our city." Wan Tang beamed at me, her eyes sparkling under the sunlight. I hesitated for a moment and replied, "You only scored 1 point lower than me, right?" "Exactly." Wan Tang continued to smile. "A mere 1 point difference can make all the difference. You are truly remarkable." At Wan Tang's enthusiastic insistence, we exchanged phone numbers and WeChat accounts. Coincidentally, I discovered that Wan Tang resided in the dormitory next to mine. That evening, I received a WeChat message from her. She sent me a link to a forum and urged, quickly check out the handsome guy. Instinctively, I clicked on it and found a post featuring photos of new students during military training. Among the sunburned newcomers, a strikingly pale young man stood out, seemingly glowing. The building was quite tall, and within moments, someone had unearthed his information. Jiang Huai, 19 years old, a freshman in the finance department, and also the male lead of the story. In the brief minute I spent perusing the post, Wan Tang sent me numerous excited messages. I scratched my head, recalling that in the original narrative, it was Jiang Huai who fell for Wan Tang at first sight and sought her WeChat. Why then? Did it appear that Wan Tang was now infatuated with Jiang Huai? However, Wan Tang's interest in Jiang Huai did not linger for long, as they were in the same class. After a few days of classes together, Wan Tang confided in me, after looking at this handsome guy for a while. He doesn't seem that impressive anymore. I nodded in agreement, fully resonating with Wan Tang's sentiments. Just like cherries, no matter how delectable they are, one can grow weary of them with daily indulgence. As I was about to respond, I glanced up and noticed the handsome guy Wan Tang mentioned standing just a few steps away from us. His gaze was sharp, almost like a knife. I tugged at Wan Tang's sleeve, whispering, "The handsome guy you're talking about is right behind you." During the National Day holiday, Wan Tang and I shared the same flight home. On the way, she continued to lament about Jiang Huai. "I truly regret being so blind at the start of the semester, thinking Jiang Huai was handsome. He's incredibly petty." "What do you mean?" I inquired, intrigued, as the original story didn't seem to paint Jiang Huai as petty. Wan Tang replied, "That day, I merely remarked that after looking at a handsome guy for a while, he doesn't seem that special anymore, and he actually got upset about it." She trailed off, and I waited for a continuation that never came. I turned to Wan Tang, asking what else. She quickly waved her hand dismissively, saying, "Nothing, nothing. It'll take a while to fly. Shall we take a nap?" I sensed something odd in Wan Tang's reaction. Just then, I spotted a flight attendant squatting in the aisle, softly addressing Mr. Jiang. "Hello, Mr. Jiang?" Instinctively, I tilted my head to look, and sure enough, sitting on the other side of the aisle was Jiang Huai. I had nearly forgotten that Jiang Huai was from the same city as us. Throughout the flight, Wan Tang fell silent, and upon disembarking, she hurried away as if being chased by a ghost. My mother came to pick me up. As soon as I got in the car, she said, "Tomorrow, the Shen family will host a banquet at the hotel to introduce Mingzhu to their relatives and friends. Mingzhu has sent you an invitation." "Me?" I was taken aback. "What about you all?" My mother shook her head, replying, "They only invited you, Mian Mian. If you don't want to go, we simply won tea." "Well, since I finally have a short break, I'll stay home to keep you company." I was certain that the invitation had not originated from Mr. and Mrs. Shen. Why would they invite me, the fake heiress, to introduce Shen Mingzhu to their relatives? Clearly, this was Mingzhu's intention. If it were the original owner, she might have felt some disappointment. However, having not lived much in the Shen family, Mingzhu's little schemes held no weight for me. But I still underestimated her. That evening, shortly after I saw a 9-panel post from Mrs. Shan about the banquet on social media, Shen Mingzhu appeared at my house in a custom evening gown, holding a 3-tiered thermos that didn't quite match her attire. My mother was taking a shower and my father was on night shift. Upon seeing that I was the only one in the living room, Shen Mingzhu looked visibly disappointed. She said, "Jiang Mian, the Shen family's banquet is held at a 5-star hotel. I sent you an invitation. Why aren't you going?" "I don't have the time." Shen Mingzhu smiled and replied, "What a pity. After leaving the Shen family, you'll probably only be able to dream of dining at high-end restaurants. You came all this way just to say such nonsense?" I raised an eyebrow. Shen Mingzhu placed the thermos on the coffee table, saying, "The dishes at tonight's banquet are quite exquisite. Your parents probably haven't had much of this, so I specially had someone pack a portion to bring you. So you can try it." So, she came specifically to annoy me. I immediately hardened my expression and retorted, "After living in this family for so many years, haven't you tasted enough? You should know by now. The Jiang family might not be as affluent as the Shen family, but we certainly weren't lacking in food." Shen Mingzhu's smile gradually faded. "Jiang Mian, what gives you the right?" Before she could finish, I heard footsteps approaching from behind. It was my mother. She walked towards us, drying her hair. "Mian Mian, why haven't you gone to take a shower?" My mother glanced at me. "I'm going now." I smiled. My mother then turned her gaze to Shen Mingzhu, saying, Mingzhu, it's quite late. You should head home to avoid worrying your parents. Shen Mingzhu nodded awkwardly, and then turned to leave. After my mother closed the door, she sighed, saying, she wasn't like this before. I replied flatly, people change. In the original story, Shen Mingzhu blamed the Jiang family for the mix-up, and after returning to the Shen family, she never visited her adoptive parents again. However, I no longer viewed this world as merely a book. The people around me were living beings, and the narrative was not immutable. The day before I returned to school, I received a call from Mrs. Shen. She invited me to the Shen family for dinner, claiming that Shen Mingzhu wanted to apologize for her earlier rudeness. A person's character does not transform so rapidly. I knew Shen Mingzhu's invitation was not merely for an apology, yet I still went, not wishing to disappoint Mrs. Shen, who had previously treated the original owner quite well. Upon arriving at the Shen residence, Shen Mingzhu insisted on taking me to her room to talk. Mrs. Shen, hoping for an improvement in our relationship, did not refuse. Once inside Shen Mingzhu's room, her smile was instantly replaced by arrogance. She turned on the light in the walk-in closet, pointing at the array of designer clothes, shoes, and bags, boasting, see? All of these are newly purchased. After you go back, you probably won't be able to afford such brands anymore. Shen Mingzhu opened the glass cabinet door, declaring, today, I'll be generous and let you look and touch. If there is something small you fancy, I might even gift it to you. You're rather tedious, I remarked, remaining still. Rather than fretting over me, you should consider how to improve your grades. If you score the same in the next college entrance exam, you won't have any excuses left. Shen Mingzhu slammed the cabinet door shut. Jiang Mian, do you think your slightly better exam scores make you impressive? She spoke with disdain. Even if you attend a prestigious university, what does it matter? After graduation, you'll still be just a poor worker. Shen Mingzhu stepped closer to me. And I am different. I am the eldest daughter of the Shen family. Even if I don't work, I have endless money to spend. The salary from a month as hard work for you wouldn't even be enough for me to buy a single piece of clothing. Jiang Mian, what do you have to compare with me now? I felt utterly unaffected by Shen Mingzhu's verbal assaults. I corrected her, you're mistaken. I've never sought to compete with you. I've only seen comparisons of excellence, never of mediocrity. Jiang Mian, Shen Mingzhu's face flushed with anger. Once you leave the Shen family, you're nothing. What gives you the right to compare yourself with me? Shen Mingzhu leaned closer, gripping my clothing, and said ominously, do you believe I can ensure you don't even get to attend university? I arched an eyebrow and smiled lightly. I don't believe so. Suddenly, the anger on Shen Mingzhu's face dissipated. Just wait and see. She smoothed out the wrinkles in her clothing and said, it's about time. Let us head downstairs. After speaking, Shen Mingzhu turned to leave. I slipped my hand into my pocket, and sure enough, I found something extra inside. It was a diamond necklace from a luxury brand, priced at over 20,000. The diamonds embedded in the pendant were not particularly large. It was mostly the brand's premium. I remained silent, tossing the necklace onto Shen Mingzhu's bed. She walked ahead, oblivious to my actions. As we reached the staircase, Shen Mingzhu abruptly halted her steps. She turned to me and whispered, Jiang Mian, do you think if I were to tumble down the stairs and then tell my parents that you pushed me, they would make it impossible for your family to continue living here? I took a step back, creating a safer distance between us. You could certainly try, I replied. The Shen household staircase was a grand spiral design, quite wide. If Shen Mingzhu were to actually roll down, she would likely find herself bedridden in a hospital for at least half a month. She glanced down the stairs and remarked, it's quite a height. Surely you don't think I would be foolish enough to jeopardize my own future just to frame you? I felt a twinge of disappointment upon hearing this. As the staircase was equipped with surveillance cameras, if she truly attempted such a stunt, it would be tantamount to a death wish. In the living room, Shen's parents were engaged in conversation. Upon seeing Shen Mingzhu and me descend, Shen's mother waved us over with a smile, saying, Mingzhu, Mian Mian, come quickly. Dinner is about to be served. Shen Mingzhu dashed over and, with a playful smile, said, Mom, I just apologized to Jiang Mian. I'd like to give her a gift as a token of my remorse. What do you think I should get her? Shen's mother glanced at me and suggested, why not just ask Mian Mian what she wants? Shen Mingzhu turned to me, Jiang Mian, I see your neck is bare. How about I gift you a necklace? My smile widened. That sounds lovely. A fleeting glimmer crossed Shen Mingzhu's eyes at my response, and she promptly turned to ascend the stairs once more. Shen's mother shook her head with a laugh. This child is just too impulsive. Shen's father appeared deep in thought. If she's going to give a gift, shouldn't she buy something new? What is she going upstairs for? Before he could finish, Shen Mingzhu returned, carrying a square box. Mom, remember the diamond necklace we bought last time we went shopping? I've never worn it, and I think it would suit Shen Mian perfectly. As she spoke, Shen Mingzhu opened the box, revealing it to be empty. Her expression shifted drastically. Where is my necklace? I saw it this morning. She shot a suspicious glance in my direction but refrained from outright accusing me of theft. Noticing Shen Mingzhu's gaze, Shen's father furrowed his brow. If it's missing, then check your room. Perhaps it fell somewhere. Shen Mingzhu shook her head vehemently. That's impossible. I placed it there securely. It wouldn't have fallen. Shen's mother's expression mirrored her daughter's distress. Could it be that you've simply forgotten to put it back? Shen Mingzhu insisted. Mom, I remember distinctly putting it back, and besides, the maid hasn't entered my room today. Only. She left her sentence unfinished, pointedly looking at me. I smiled and completed her thought. So you suspect that I stole your necklace? Shen Mingzhu retorted. You were the only one who entered my room today, and you were right behind me just now. Although she did not explicitly accuse me of theft, her insinuation was unmistakable. I replied calmly, in that case, let's send someone to search your room. If we can't find it, we should report it to the police. I glanced at the prominent logo on the box. This brand of necklace is not inexpensive. The police will assist in uncovering the truth. Shen Mingzhu's lips curled into a smirk, and disregarding her parents' protests, she instructed the maid to search her room. The expressions on Shen's father and mother darkened. The maid soon returned, producing the necklace that I had carelessly left on Shen Mingzhu's bed. Madam, I found this on Miss Mingzhu's bed. Shen Mingzhu stared in disbelief at the necklace in the maid's hands, exclaiming, This is impossible. I remained silent, a smile playing on my lips. The clothing I wore today was not thick, and it would have been quite noticeable had I pocketed something extra. Having lived through many trials, Shen's parents quickly grasped that this was Shen Mingzhu's own folly. After dismissing the maid, Shen's father addressed her sternly. Shen Mingzhu, apologize to Jiang Mian. Shen Mingzhu looked at him with a hurt expression. Dad, I am your daughter. Why are you doing this? Be quiet, Shen's father interjected sharply. Do you still not comprehend where you went wrong? I did nothing wrong, Shen Mingzhu denied. I genuinely do not understand how that necklace ended up on my bed. Seeing this, I decided not to waste any more time. I took out my phone from my pocket, opened the built-in recording app, and played the latest recording. Shen Mingzhu's haughty, disdainful voice echoed from the phone. Shen Mingzhu was momentarily stunned. Once she regained her composure, she lunged to snatch my phone away. Jiang Mian, you are truly despicable, she shouted as she attempted to grab it from me. That's enough, Shen's father bellowed, causing Shen Mingzhu to hesitate. The dialogue on my phone was nearing its conclusion, and I paused it. Shen's father looked at me, a look of regret in his eyes. I apologized, Mian Mian. It's just, I shook my head, interrupting him. Shen Dad, this matter does not concern you. It is entirely Shen Mingzhu's issue. To prevent them from thinking my parents had failed to raise her properly, I clarified. She was never like this during her time at the Jiang family. Perhaps her sudden realization of being a wealthy heiress altered her mindset. Shen's father and mother appeared embarrassed. Clearly, dinner would not be happening now. Before departing, Shen's father asked me to send him a copy of the recording, assuring me that he would teach Shen Mingzhu a lesson. Whether or not she learned a lesson was no longer significant. Her credibility with her parents was irrevocably shattered. Shen Mingzhu had an older brother studying abroad, known for his ruthlessness and ambition, making him a pivotal character in the original narrative, one who would later compete with the male lead for the female lead's affections. Shen's father had not only sent her away, but had done so without providing her a single cent henceforth. If Shen Mingzhu needed money, she would have to rely on her brother. For someone who had experienced the lavish lifestyle, this was arguably a fate worse than death. Moreover, Shen's older brother was known for his cold-heartedness. One could easily envision the dire consequences awaiting Shen Mingzhu under his care. After that incident, I ceased to follow any news regarding Shen Mingzhu. In my sophomore year, Zhang Huai and Wan Tang decided to partner in starting a company. Wan Tang approached me, inquiring if I wished to join. In the original story, Zhang Huai had initiated the company on his own, yet now he was involving Wan Tang, who in turn was keen on bringing me along. I was momentarily taken aback before regaining my composure. But you're planning to create a game. And my major is unrelated. What does that matter? You have plenty of ideas, Wan Tang replied, her eyes sparkling with anticipation. Neither Jiang Huai nor I have asked our families for funding. The initial capital is minimal. If you don't join us, our company cannot be established. Goodness. She was even resorting to her best pleading techniques. I took a moment to reflect on the original narrative. As my time in this world extends, many details have begun to elude my memory. I vaguely recall that Jiang Huai's company initially focused solely on gaming, but later diversified into various other ventures. Regardless, their success was undeniable. It would not be an exaggeration to say they were raking in wealth with each passing day. The deity of fortune seemed to have bestowed a wealth of riches upon me, and it would be rather ungracious to cast it aside. These two individuals are proactive. Upon my assent, they had our family's lawyer draft the agreement. Since Jiang Huai contributed both capital and effort in the greatest measure, it was only natural for him to hold the largest share. Although the narrative of the original story had become quite disordered, the protagonist's streak of good fortune remained unchanged. Our inaugural minigame met with tremendous success. Being our first endeavor, we exercised caution and limited our investment, opting for a mini-program. The concept was mine. While the game was developed by Jiang Huai and Wan Tang, who borrowed talent from their family company, through our joint efforts, this game quickly gained traction among our social circles, achieving peak daily revenues exceeding $1 million. While this may pale in comparison to the popularity of national mobile games, it represented a significant success for us. With funds in our company account, we began the recruitment process. Relying solely on the three of us, scaling our operations seemed nearly impossible. Certain tasks necessitated additional hands. I believe we can recruit for some positions directly from schools, Jiang Huai suggested. Those who gain admission to Tsinghua University must possess a commendable intellect. Hiring them now would be cost-effective, and we lack an advantage in recruiting prestigious graduates from other institutions. Wan Tang and I found no objection to Jiang Huai's proposal. However, certain roles still required full-time hires. Wan Tang enlisted her father's HR personnel to assist with recruitment, yet the final interviews were conducted by the three of us. Though our company was modest in scale, our financial incentives proved attractive, making recruitment relatively straightforward. Everything progressed in an orderly fashion. Our plan for mobile game development officially commenced. However, the costs associated with developing mobile games are substantial, and the process tends to be lengthy. We subsequently launched several mini-program games, all of which received favorable responses. Standalone mini-games can be quickly exhausting. Thus, continuous updates are essential to retain user engagement. During the summer vacation, I received a phone call. The caller expressed an intention to acquire our company and requested a face-to-face meeting. "I'm sorry, but I cannot make that decision," I replied before promptly ending the call. Given that Jiang Huai held the majority stake, I found it perplexing that they would approach me instead of him. I shared this incident in our group chat with Wan Tang and Jiang Huai. Jiang Huai swiftly provided a phone number, inquiring if it was the same person who had contacted me. Upon checking, I confirmed it was indeed the same. Jiang Huai remarked, "This individual called me," but I did not answer. No wonder they reached out to me instead. I soon dismissed the matter from my mind. However, just a couple of days later, while I was out purchasing fruit, I was intercepted by an individual. The license plate of the vehicle seemed somewhat familiar, though I couldn't recall where I had seen it. As the window rolled down, a man with a handsome yet intimidating demeanor at the wheel commanded, "Shen Mian, get in." Instinctively, I contemplated fleeing, but before I could move, he stated, "I am Shen Zhou, the eldest scion of the Shen family and the brother of Shen Mingzhu." Since my arrival in this narrative, I had yet to encounter Shen Zhou. My focus had solely been on altering the original protagonist's fate, leaving no inclination to seek out his photograph for recognition. Had he not introduced himself, I would have remained oblivious. Shielding myself from the glaring sun, I hesitated for a moment before ultimately entering Shen Zhou's car. On such a sweltering day, the air-conditioned vehicle provided a welcome respite. I offered an awkward smile. "Mr. Shen, I apologize. It has been so long since we last met that I did not recognize you." It was indeed remarkable that I could recognize him, given that I had not seen him since arriving in this world. Shen Zhou cut to the chase, stating, "I called you a few days ago." "When?" I was momentarily taken aback. "The one who mentioned acquiring our company?" Shen Zhou merely grunted in response. I raised my thumb in approval. "Mr. Shen has discerning taste, however. Our company is not for sale." Shen Zhou's expression shifted, revealing a hint of embarrassment as he confessed, "At that time, I was unaware that the company was co-founded by you and Jiang Huai." Clutching the large watermelon in my arms, I replied, "I had no idea that individual was you either." Shen Zhou squinted, then suddenly remarked, "Shen Mingzhu has been admitted to a psychiatric hospital. If you have the opportunity, you should visit our parents. They miss you dearly, but lack the courage to reach out." My body stiffened, disbelief washing over me. Why? Although Shen Mingzhu had her shortcomings, She was certainly sound of mind. I mean, why has she been admitted to a psychiatric hospital? Shen Zhou's cold chuckle echoed. She claims to have been reborn. Shen Zhou refrained from elaborating further, yet I sensed that Shen Mingzhu must have shared more than just that. Otherwise, even Shen Zhou, for all his coldness, would not have confined his own sister to a psychiatric facility. Silently, I scoffed within, thinking, what a fool, to dare speak such nonsense. I will make time to visit them, I replied, though I feared that their sight of me might remind them of Shen Mingzhu's fate. Indeed, Shen Zhou nodded and inquired, if your company is not for sale, would you accept an investment? Observing Shen Zhou's demeanor, I discerned he was not jesting. Zhang Huai is the major shareholder. You must consult him. Shen Zhou offered no further commentary, simply urging me to visit Shen father and Shen mother when time permitted, before allowing me to disembark from the vehicle. However, Zhang Huai ultimately declined Shen Zhou's investment. Both he and Wan Tang's families were financially secure. If funds were truly required, they could easily approach their families rather than seek external investment. Shen Zhou did not press the matter, instead opting to immerse himself in his family's company. He swiftly enacted sweeping reforms within the organization. Shen Zhou proved highly capable. The successive projects he undertook yielded profits for the Shen family. Aside from the occasional outburst, where he would come to me with perplexing inquiries, everything was progressing positively. On my graduation day, both my parents and Shen father and mother attended the ceremony. The four of them stood on either side of me, posing for a group photo. Shen mother shared this photograph on social media, captioning it, "My daughter has graduated." Shortly thereafter, I received a call from Shen Zhou. He stated, "Jiang Mian, when you return, call me. I have prepared a graduation gift for you." I hesitated. I won't be able to return just yet. Wan Tang and I are going on a trip. Wan Tang had insisted on a graduation journey, having already booked tickets without prior discussion. When do you leave? Shen Zhou pressed. Tomorrow morning, for approximately half a month. These past 2 years had been consumed by work and studies, leaving little room for relaxation. Wan Tang proposed that we seize this opportunity to explore. Understood. Shen Zhou replied before hanging up. However, just a few hours later, he appeared at the entrance of my rented apartment complex. When I received Shen Zhou's call, I initially thought he was playing a prank on me. Yet, he promptly sent me a photograph of the entrance to my complex. I spotted him from a distance, impeccably dressed in a suit. His tall, handsome figure, clad in formal attire, made him particularly conspicuous. Upon seeing me emerge from the complex, Shen Zhou beckoned me with a finger. "Hurry up, do you move like a snail? What brings you here?" I quickened my pace. Shen Zhou handed me a modest paper bag, stating, "I came on business and took the opportunity to bring you your graduation gift." An opportunity? I questioned the sincerity of his words. Shen Zhou glanced at the time and replied, "All right, let's go inside. I have an appointment later." Well, it truly was a mere convenience. "Very well, take care." Shen Zhou took 2 steps forward and said to me, "When you return, remember to bring me a gift as well." I waved my hand dismissively. "All right, boss." Over the past 2 years, my relationship with Shen Zhou had developed quite well. In the realm of business, he was indeed as ruthless as portrayed in the original narrative, yet his private demeanor was rather amiable. Although his tongue could be rather sharp at times, he had genuinely assisted me on numerous occasions. A mere gift was trivial. Even if he hadn't mentioned it, I would have undoubtedly purchased something. Not only for him, but my parents and Sun Fusenmu would also deserve their share. Upon returning home, I first unwrapped the graduation gift Shen Zhou had prepared for me. It was a necklace. However, neither the box nor the paper bag bore any logos, and I had never encountered this design before. The pendant was engraved with the initials of my name, JM. The necklace was exquisite, and I was captivated by it at first sight. Thus, I decided to arrange a similar one for Antong. I immediately texted Shen Zhou, inquiring where he had purchased the necklace, as I wished to procure an identical piece for my friend. After a brief half-hour, Shen Zhou responded with a smiley face. "You won't be able to buy it." I sent him a meme, replying, "I have money." Relying on the support of the male and female protagonists has proven quite lucrative. Over these 2 years, I had saved a considerable amount. I could certainly afford a necklace. Shen Zhou took a while to reply again. Following the smiley face, he added, "I designed it myself and had it custom-made. There is only one in the entire world." Suddenly, I felt the necklace in my hand grow warm. Yet it was undeniably beautiful. Both the pendant and the chain resonated with my aesthetic sensibilities. As I contemplated how to respond to Shen Zhou, his call came through. Shen Zhou sounded as if he were in a noisy environment. With a sinister tone, he said, "Jiang Mian, I have registered the copyright for the design of this necklace. If I see Tong wearing a similar piece, you can expect a lawsuit from me." I was left speechless. Sun Zhou then shifted his tone, stating, "This is a graduation gift for you. You cannot pass it on to Tong." "All right, boss. Rest assured, I won't pass it on to anyone." If it were Sun Zhou, I believed he would indeed follow through. Before ending the call, I said, "Sun Zhou, I really like this necklace. Thank you." Then I heard Sun Zhou's light laughter through the phone. "Call me brother." 22 extra 1. Shen Mian had always possessed a rather aloof personality, leading to a distant relationship with his family. In his first year of high school, he chose to study abroad. He would return home only once or twice a year, and occasionally Shenmu would take Shen Mian to visit him. However, the bond of siblinghood was so tenuous that it was nearly negligible. Thus, when Xingzhou learned that Shen Mian was not actually his biological sister, he experienced little emotional upheaval. As for his biological sister who had been mistakenly swapped with Shen Mian, Xingzhou was even less concerned. To him, Shen Mingzhou was merely a stranger he had never met. Consequently, after the incident, he opted not to return home, instead seeking to confirm whether the mix-up was a deliberate act by the Jiang family or an error made by the hospital. Upon ascertaining that the blunder originated from the hospital, Xingzhou then sought legal counsel to hold the hospital accountable. Although he felt indifferent towards both sisters, it did not imply he would entirely neglect the situation. However, Xingzhou found it impossible to develop any fondness for Shen Mingzhou, despite never having met her. He perceived her as overly sentimental based on his mother's descriptions. Even his parents had inadvertently discovered that they were not related to Jiang Mian. Thus, how did Shen Mingzhou become aware of her non-blood relation to the Jiang family and precisely track down the Shen family, especially on the eve of the college entrance examination? Shen Mingzhou was merely 18 years old at the time, and there had never been any interaction between the Jiang and Shen families. Before Shen Mingzhou approached the Shen family, she had never had contact with her own parents. Xingzhou could not fathom the basis for Xingzhou's unwavering belief that she was the Shen family's biological daughter. He felt no concern for Jiang Wei, yet he harbored an inexplicable aversion towards Mingzhou. Later, when the college entrance examination results were released, Shen Mingzhou's scores plummeted far below her previous standards. In contrast, Jiang Wei managed to maintain composure amid this upheaval and even exceeded expectations, which left Xingzhou with a newfound respect. Shen Mingzhou's sudden and significant decline in performance led Xingzhou to entertain some rather fantastical speculations. Thus, he discreetly commissioned an investigation into her, only to discover that since she had approached the Shen family, her behavior had notably changed. Even her handwriting had transformed. This naturally aroused Xingzhou's suspicions. Yet, Shen Mingzhou unwittingly sabotaged herself, repeatedly engaging in troublesome antics. Consequently, Xingzhou proactively proposed to take Shen Mingzhou under his wing. He was determined to witness for himself what manner of enigma this sister of his truly was. Upon arriving abroad, Shen Mingzhou initially felt a thrill. However, once she witnessed Xingzhou's formidable nature, her enthusiasm quickly waned. "Brother, I want to go back. I miss Mom and Dad," she wept, trying to soften Xingzhou's heart. Yet Xingzhou remained unmoved. "You cannot go anywhere." "On what grounds?" "Xingzhou, what gives you the right to interfere with my freedom?" Shen Mingzhou's mental state was nearing a breakdown. Seeing Xingzhou's continued indifference, her emotions began to spiral out of control. "You and I are both children of the Shen family. I have a stake in the family business. So, who do you think you are to restrict my freedom?" Xingzhou's gaze turned icy as it swept over Shen Mingzhou. "And you dare question my worth?" Shen Mingzhou swallowed hard. Intimidated by Xingzhou's piercing stare, she instinctively recoiled and began to negotiate terms with him. "Xingzhou, let's make a deal. You send me back, help me eliminate Jiang Wei, and I will assist you in elevating the Shen family to greater heights. How does that sound?" In her previous life, she had disregarded the objections of Angfu and Jiang Mu, insisting on marrying a wealthy heir. Little did she know that the heir was a fraud. His villa and car were rentals, and the company was someone else's. The facade of prosperity did not last long. After Shen Mingzhou became pregnant, his true colors were revealed. It turned out he had married her for her status as a Beijinger and her position as an only child. Later, she learned online that the prestigious Shen family was searching for their biological daughter, and from Jiang Mu, she discovered that she and Shen family's daughter had been born on the same day in the same hospital. Hence, Shen Mingzhou approached the Shen family with a trial-and-error mindset, never expecting that she would indeed turn out to be their daughter. This initially seemed like a stroke of good fortune. She could escape from the false heir and live the life she had always dreamed of. However, upon seeing that the person who had usurped her place not only graduated from a prestigious university, but also had a well-matched husband, Shen's sense of balance was instantly disrupted. The more she compared herself to Yang Wei, the more she wanted to bring her down. Yet, unexpectedly, only a few days after returning to the Shen family, she found herself reborn. Compared to the deceitful faux heir, Shen Mingzhou harbored a greater resentment towards Yang Wei, who had stolen her identity. Shen Mingzhou clung to the notion of being reborn as if it were a lifeline. I am reborn, I know many things. Trust me, I can truly help you. Upon hearing the phrase reborn from Shen Mingzhou, Shen Zhou's suspicions were confirmed. Initially, he had felt that Shen Mingzhou's demeanor did not align with that of an 18 or a 19-year-old. Often, she exuded the essence of someone much older. Nevertheless, Shen Zhou suspected that Shen Mingzhou's body had been possessed by some wandering spirit. Otherwise, he could not explain why Shen Mingzhou had been relatively well-behaved while with the Yang family, but transformed into a completely different person upon arriving at the Shen family. A truly detestable individual. Thus, Shen Zhou opted to confine Shen Mingzhou to a mental institution. If she wished to lose her sanity, then let her descend into madness. Upon returning to the country, when Shen Zhou first encountered Shen Mian, he sensed a subtle difference in her compared to the sister he remembered. It was indefinable, yet he felt an uncanny dissimilarity. After sending Shen Mingzhou to the asylum, Shen Zhou had not paid attention to Shen Mian's affairs. It was only later that he learned from his father that the gaming company he intended to acquire was co-founded by Shen Mian and her classmates. Who would have imagined that 3 university students could achieve such remarkable success in their inaugural venture? Shen Zhou perceived that, in contrast to Shen Mingzhou, Shen Mian embodied the essence of the Shen family. They say curiosity marks the inception of affection. Yet, by the time Shen Zhou became aware of this burgeoning sentiment, it was already somewhat late. However, as Shen Mian was still in university, he refrained from taking any action. Most crucially, he needed to discern whether this was admiration for his sister or a burgeoning attraction to the opposite sex. Shen Zhou's past life revolved solely around academics and work. The concept of romance was utterly foreign to him. Nevertheless, this did not hinder him from subtly nurturing a relationship with Shen Mian while deftly extinguishing any romantic prospects that might surround her. The graduation gift he designed for Shen Mian had been in the works for quite some time. Shen Zhou initially intended to wait until Shen Mian's return to gradually reveal his feelings. He understood her too well. A direct confession would be futile. A more nuanced, gentle approach would prove far more effective. Yet, upon seeing a stranger appear in Shen Mian's travel photos, Shen Zhou found himself restless. Consequently, he instructed his assistant to hastily book a flight to the city Shen Mian was visiting. The lengthy journey left him somewhat fatigued, but upon disembarking, he sought out Shen Mian. To his astonishment, he did not encounter the man from her social media. Instead, she was accompanied solely by Jiang Huai and Ruan Tang. Shen Mian was taken aback by Shen Zhou's arrival. "What brings you here?" she exclaimed, momentarily at a loss for words. Shen Zhou discreetly surveyed his surroundings, replying, "I was on a business trip and thought I would drop by." Shen Mian did not dwell on it, inviting him to sit while indicating a nearby viewing platform. Jiang Huai and Ruan Tang went to take photographs. "I noticed," Shen Zhou nodded, casually inquiring, "Weren't there 4 of you? Where is the 4th person?" "4th person?" Shen Mian paused, then realized whom Shen Zhou referred to. With a smile, she explained, "That's our tour guide. We visited a unique location yesterday, so we hired someone to provide us with insights." Upon observing Shen Zhou's reaction, Shen Mian's mind began to entertain a certain hypothesis, though she lacked the courage to confirm it. Hearing that the individual was merely a guide, Shen Zhou felt a quiet relief wash over him. However, the subsequent itinerary transformed their trio into a quartet. On his first day, Shen Zhou quickly discerned that Jiang Huai and Ruan Tang were evidently a couple. As they walked, Jiang Huai unconsciously gravitated towards Ruan Tang, who made no effort to distance herself from him. When it came time to divide their belongings, Jiang Huai's first thought was also for Ruan Tang. As he strolled alongside Shen Zhou, Shen Mian found the situation almost surreal. The antagonist from the original narrative was now amicably exchanging contact information with the protagonist. The supposed nemesis, unlike in the original story, showed no interest in Ruan Tang. Rather, he remained closely beside her. This only served to further validate Shen Mian's suspicions. Affection for someone is inherently difficult to conceal. That evening, a fireworks display illuminated the local skies. The 4 dawn garments adorned with local flair. Jiang Mian noted that Shen Zhou's attire had typically leaned towards a minimalist aesthetic. This vibrant ensemble was a delightful surprise, and he looked surprisingly handsome. The crowd gathered to witness the spectacle was considerable. Shen Zhou remained vigilant, ensuring Jiang Mian was not jostled by the throngs. "Be careful," he cautioned, gently pulling Jiang Mian closer. A smile graced her lips, but soon she realized Zhang Huai and Wan Tang had vanished. She glanced around, surrendering her search amidst the sea of onlookers, reassured by the thought that Zhang Huai would ensure Wan Tang's safety. "What are you looking for?" Shen Zhou inquired. Jiang Mian shook her head. "Nothing, just browsing." At 9 o'clock, the fireworks commenced punctually. They had secured a spot at the viewing platform where the crowd was sparse. Unable to resist, Jiang Mian took out her phone to capture the moment's beauty, as a gentle breeze tousled her hair, and she beamed with joy. Shen Zhou found himself inexplicably compelled to retrieve his own phone. While Jiang Mian focused on the fireworks, Shen Zhou's photos featured her in the frame as well. However, before he could discreetly pocket his phone, Jiang Mian caught him in the act. Raising an eyebrow, she teased, "Were you taking candid shots of me?" With an air of nonchalance, Shen Zhou returned his phone to his pocket. "If you've caught me, it can hardly be called candid." Jiang Mian felt a flush creep to her ears, unprepared for Shen Zhou's forthrightness. Momentarily at a loss for how to respond, she opted to resume her admiration of the fireworks. Yet, Shen Zhou took a step closer, standing side by side with her. Amidst the cacophony of exploding fireworks, he leaned in and asked, "Jiang Mian, would you be interested in entering a relationship with me? One aimed at marriage." Shen Zhou had not intended to be so direct so soon, yet the beauty of the fireworks and the ambience inspired a rare moment of impulse. Nevertheless, he harbored no regrets. Even if Jiang Mian were to decline at that moment, he possessed the patience to pursue his desires gradually. Shen Zhou's confession was unexpectedly abrupt. Yet Jiang Mian felt both surprise and a sense of inevitability. When he gifted her the necklace he had designed, she sensed the possibility of this moment. Now, it was merely a confirmation of her intuition. Thus, Jiang Mian remained silent, refraining from turning back. Instead, she extended her hand towards Shen Zhou, intertwining their fingers. "I do," Jiang Mian replied. The story concludes here. Thank you for listening. If you enjoyed it, please consider subscribing and giving a thumbs up for support. Until we meet again in the next tale.